Hi, it's Gene, retired in Mexico, and welcome to the channel. I've got a special guest today, Professor Gumbo, right here. Welcome.
Hello.
And I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon. You can check all the links out up above. And down below is the like and subscribe button, bells and notifications. We encourage all of that. And yeah, so we're going to do 1988 today. But before we do that, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah. Um, Going to go on phase two of our mini pub crawl with my daughter this evening. And that should be fun. I we have a new thing that we're doing rather than having an annual pub crawl. She got us these coupon books where we get free beers. And so she's just planning out two or three places once a month where we just go and we each have a beer and then we come home. So
That sounds
um,
great.
we had a good time we had a good time in January doing it. So we're gonna do it again.
Okay, and I've got some unstable internet, it says. So if I phase out, let me know. And I've got a couple cats running around here. They're hyped up. I just fed them and they're full of calories. So yeah, so what we're doing
I
here,
have
if you're new to the channel, we're counting down our top 10 albums of 1988. And we started with 1970. The professor and I are high school friends, so we're getting reacquainted with our modern taste here. And what we're going to do is pick two songs from each album, and then we're going to give five honorable mentions. So that's the format. And yeah, we've really been enjoying this. For those of you watching it, we really appreciate it. And yeah, man, these cats are just, they're such a hoot. Anyway, I'm going to give a little background to the year just to remind everybody of what 1988 was all about. I kind of enjoy doing this context. And we're taking turns going first. So the professor does the even years in the 80s here. And so I'm going to have him go first. But before that, let me just run down some events that happened from the year. It was actually quite eventful because last week when we did 87, I didn't really have that much to talk about. But in 88, the Soviet Union collapsed. So that was a pretty big deal. Al Qaeda was founded. The leader was Osama bin Laden. So I think we've all heard of him. Pan Am Flight 103 was blown up over Lockerbie, Scotland. That was a big deal because that was I guess because it was a U.S. flight, but yeah, that was another terrorist incident. Oliver North and John Poindexter were indicted on charges of conspiracy to defraud the United States. George H.W. Bush defeated Michael Dukakis in the fall election. The top singles were Phil Collins, A Groovy Kind of Love. A lot of people hate that video, but I kind of like it. Bobby McFerrin, Don't Worry, Be Happy. That video is not aged as well. U2 Desire. Billy Ocean, Get Out of My Dreams, Get Into My Car. I don't remember that song. Do you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
vaguely, but I didn't pay much attention to it. I do want to make one mention about Don't Worry, Be Happy. For the many years that I was the yearbook advisor at Moon Valley High School, whenever we would have senior quotes, there would always be somebody who wanted to attribute Don't Worry, Be Happy to Bob Marley. And I had to correct them and say, this is Bob Marley, it's Bobby McFerrin. And this one girl said, no, it's Bob Marley. I said, no, it's not. And I'm not going to put Bob Marley, it's the quote there. Um, so
That's funny.
it,
Other singles
it's
were
kind of
Guns N'
sad
Roses.
that Bob Marley,
Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, it's sad that some people remember Bob Marley for such a lame song.
Yeah. It's and I didn't mind the song when it came out, but it's not aged well. And Anyway, other singles were Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine, and In Excess, Need You Tonight. Top films were they included Rain Man, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, A Fish Called Wanda, and Die Hard. And deaths included Nico from the Velvet Underground, Roy Orbison. That's when you and I started the joke about me killing people because I had seen Roy Orbison in his second to the last concert that he ever did. And he died a month later. So Chet Baker, the jazz trumpet player, died. And Hillel Slovak of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I actually saw him in concert. So that's what happened in '88. I always ask you the same question. Does that bring back any memories?
What was happening in '88? Yeah, I was kind of smoothly moving along with with my job. I hadn't yet become a teacher. That was still about a few years in the future. Um, and so there really wasn't much going on there except for no, not much. Just Cindy and I were married, and we would soon, within 2 years, have our daughter Kaylee.
Yeah, in '90, I remember that. So let me get myself the same height as you. And there we go. And okay, so I'm going to let you start. You want to tell us your number 10 and your two songs?
My number 10, this is a band that you know, I've always liked their early work the most, although I have most of their albums before they broke up. It's one of the seminal American alternative bands that had a major impact on um, certain bands like Nirvana, for example. And this is um, Pixies. And Pixies was an interesting band because Black Francis, the leader and the lead singer, um, except when Kim Deal was singing, but uh, he he was a huge fan. I mean, huge fan of uh, David Lynch. And there
Hmm.
is a, and he said that with the band, he was trying to make a musical version of David Lynch's films, and he did succeed in that a number of times. Um, when I first started getting CDs, their debut LP or EP, Come On Pilgrim, was released along with Surfer Rosa. And so I've always associated those two. Matter of fact, sometimes I have trouble remembering what songs are from Surfer Rosa and what songs from Come On Pilgrim. Um, but the band was very noisy at the time and very weird. But there's a lot of great songs. And it turns out, and I didn't know this at the time, but almost from the outset, David Bowie,
My cat.
almost from the outset, David Bowie was a huge fan of Pixies. Um, and so, and he talked about that a number of times. Um, the first album and the first EP uh, have a number of really good songs, including "Gigantic," which I believe was sung by King Deal mostly. Um,
Hmm.
but and then you know, but "Where Is My Mind" is probably my favorite song from the album. They're just a real, it's a great one, a great melody, great lyrics, weird lyrics, as most of Black Francis's lyrics are. And then, so I would choose that. Where Is My Mind is one of the songs. And the other song, I wanted to choose one from the EP as well as the album, but they're both from the album, is the song that David Bowie did a cover of later, and that is Cactus.
Hmm.
And that's also a great song. Now, um, I would like to just make a passing reference because if I were to put three songs on there, I would put Levitate Me from Come On Pilgrim, which is where the title of the album comes from. And this is something you may or may not have known, Gene. Do you know where that Come On Pilgrim, you know he loves you comes from?
No.
A Larry Norman song. And it's
Huh.
actually it's a Larry Norman song. And Black Francis was a huge fan of the Christian rock artist Larry Norman, and he put that in there. Come on, come on, Pilgrim. You know he loves you. And I always laugh whenever I hear that.
Wow.
So,
I had
so
no
anyway,
idea.
so Where Is My Mind and Cactus from Surfer Rosa, Come On, Pilgrim.
Yeah, great song choices. Love that. All right. So my number 10 is an album recorded on a shoestring budget in a church. You know what that might be?
It wouldn't be you two because they were a massive band at that time. Shoestring budget in a church.
Yeah. This is the Trinity Sessions by the Cowboy Junkies.
Okay, all right.
And I like this album. And I'm not uh, a huge fan. I haven't really followed the rest of their catalog, but this debut is just really interesting. Margot Timmons' voice, I like it. And yeah, it's about half covers and about half originals. And so I'm going to go with one of each. I'm going to go with the song Misguided Angel, which is really pretty. And then their cover of the Velvet Underground, Sweet Jane, which is a really good cover version of that song. And it's recorded by Peter Moore. He got a lot of praise for having such a good sounding album off just a few $1,000s. That's all they paid to record it, but it sounds really good to me. It's crystal clear. They, I think they used one microphone. Yeah, it was really interesting. But Cowboy Junkies, the Trinity Sessions at number 10, or the Trinity Session at number 10.
The Sweet Jane is probably the song they're most known for um, these many years later.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, yeah, that's a fine one. Next one is a band that I've been liking almost well since his debut album, and that is Graham Parker. And he finally kind of took a left turn as far as his sound. He'd been keeping kind of the same pub rock soul sound for quite a while, but then he made an album that was quite a bit different. And I think he boosted his quality when he made this album, and that was the Mona Lisa's Sister. Um, and uh, it, what's different about it? Well, it doesn't. It still has a soulful sound to it, but it's more contemporary sounding. He moved himself more into the modern age, the late 80s, and the production is there. And no song shows this better than Get Started, Start a Fire, which is just, an amazing song by him, probably one of his absolute best songs. And that's where the title, the Mona Lisa's Sister, comes from. It's in the lyrics for that. There were several other fantastic songs, but I wanted to go with a song that kind of an outlier. It's a cover. Parker was known once in a while to do cover songs, and to close up the album, he did a really beautiful cover of Sam Cooke's Cupid. And and at first when I saw he's doing Cupid, that's such a pretty song. How can he do it? But even though he doesn't have a pretty voice, his version of the song is really pretty. And so he could have done it as a very kind of post-punk type of thing, but he didn't. He took the song really seriously. And so, it provides a contrast to some of the other songs on the album. So Graham number 9, Graham Parker, the Mona Lisa's Sister, Get Started, Start a Fire, and Cupid.
Wow. Yeah, I like that. That album sounds great. It's really produced well. Yeah, I like that. My number 9, this won't entirely surprise you, but I do like power pop. I like Big Star and bands like that. So this is 80s power pop, and it's the Smithereens
Mm-hmm.
with their album Green Thoughts, which might be their best album. It's the tunes are so catchy. Pat DiNizio, rest in peace. He had a real knack for melody. This was their sophomore album, and he worked really hard on it. I was reading about how he turned off the phone and didn't talk to anybody and just holed up and wrote songs. He wanted to have a good sophomore effort and try to avoid the sophomore slump. And they did it. This is better than their debut. And you can't always say that about a sophomore album, but they took it up another level. And I love these songs, produced by Don Dixon, who worked with REM. So I'm a big fan of his production style. And I also like Don Dixon's solo albums. He had an album called Romeo at Juilliard that was really good. Song selections here, Only a Memory, which was a single from the album, and then a track called The World We Know. But there are several good songs on here. So my number nine pick is the Smithereens Green Thoughts.
It's interesting how us doing this, that you will mention an album or a band that I hadn't thought of in years. I really liked the Smithereens when they came out, and I've just forgotten about them. I bought their albums back then on vinyl, but I didn't end up getting in the 90s. I didn't end up getting anything on CD, and they just sort of drifted away from my mind. If I go out and look in my vinyl collection, which I haven't touched in years, I would still find some Smithereens albums in there. But thank you for reminding me about the Smithereens, because if you were to ask me about some of the best bands of the late 80s, they would not have come to mind, but they definitely belong there. Um, my number eight, somebody that I really have grown, I not have grown, I grew to like gradually. You talked uh, I think last session about some of the alternative country acts that were coming out, country musicians who appealed to a rock crowd. And there are many of them, but the one that has stayed with me the most. I don't know why, but his stuff really has, it just really grabbed me. And that's Steve Earle, the outlaw Steve Earle. Steve Earle uh, was a writer for Nashville, but he never fit in with the Nashville scene. He didn't associate with them. And his first album, Guitar Town, was, you know, it just had a different rocking sound to it. Well, this album, a couple albums later, is possibly my favorite album before he got arrested and cleaned up the drugs because he was on a lot of drugs at the time. But this is such a fine record. It is Copperhead Road, and it has a number of really fine songs. Two of his best songs ever. The title track, Copperhead Road, has this almost a chunky, uh, almost a Cajun sound to it, which is not unusual because a lot of his stuff had that, kind of like a Doug Kershaw song. But Copperhead Road is a song about his, I mean, it's probably fictional, but it's about how his father was a moonshiner. And then he went off to Vietnam and got hooked on uh, other drugs besides moonshine and came back and started marketing these other drugs. Okay. And but it's still Copperhead Road. It's like the the drug dealers or the moonshiners versus the law. And just it's a real powerful rocking song. And this was when Steve Earle was at his most outlaw. And then which is real you can really see in this other song that I chose, The Devil's Right Hand, Mama said a pistol is the devil's right hand. So Steve was a protege of oh God, what's his name? He's from East Texas. He wrote Pancho and Lefty. Uh,
Jones Van Zandt.
yeah, Townes Van Zandt, and Steve Earle was a close friend and a protege of Townes Van Zandt. He even named his son after Townes Van Zandt, named him Townes. Um, so there's kind of that sound to him, and it's not a surprise. So Steve Earle, Copperhead Road, and The Devil's Right Hand.
Perfect song choices. I just watched a reaction to the video of Copperhead Road, which is a great video. And then the Devil's Right Hand. Did you know that the Highwaymen covered that?
No, I didn't. No, I
Yeah.
can imagine it.
Yeah, and they do a pretty serviceable version of that. Well, we haven't had any convergence so far. Our lists are completely different. I think that's going to change with my number 8 pick because I'm guessing you're going to have this on your list. But I'm going to go with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Tender Prey. So this is the first time that they've been on my top 10 or honorable mentions. I like Nick Cave more and more as he went through his career. Uh, I like a lot of his later albums actually, but this is the first Nick Cave album that I really like, and it's great. It's great, produced by a bunch of people, mostly Flood and the band, and Tony Cohen, who is kind of their house producer that they always worked with, and he did a bunch of albums with them, and I like the sound on here. It's really good. Yeah, this is a classic Nick Cave, and you got to go with the Mercy Seat. I think a song about death row that Johnny Cash famously covered, and it's a great song, the Mercy Seat. And then I'm going to go with a deeper track that just kind of struck me when I was listening to this. It's called Sugar, Sugar, Sugar. Not one of the better known songs on the album, but I like it. But there's maybe 5 or 6 really strong tracks I could have selected tracks from. But anyway, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Tender Prey at number 8.
Great choice. And no, I don't have it on mine. Because there were so many great albums, I just had to cut it. But if I were to pick it, I would also pick the song Deanna. I
Yeah.
really like the song Deanna. Um, I ain't down here for your money. I ain't down here for your love. I'm down here for your soul. Uh, um, and it's Nick kind of at a transition between the wild Nick Cave of the early Bad Seeds and the more restrained Nick Cave that was going to be coming up along in the 90s. So I, I I'm really glad you put that on there because I had to overlook it. Okay, the next artist on here is an artist that I just love, and um, this was a year for him. Okay. It was a fantastic studio album, and there was also a great live album. And I have them both on here, but we'll start with the studio album. And this is Richard Thompson's Amnesia. Now, I'd like to point out something. Richard Thompson is indisputably my favorite guitarist. Okay. There's no doubt about that. Both electric guitarist and acoustic guitarist. You ask me who my favorite guitarist is, Richard Thompson. You ask me who my favorite songwriter is. Well, maybe not Richard Thompson, but he's high on the list. Same thing with singer. He's also high on the list. So I mean, this guy has a hat trick of guitarist, songwriter, and singer. And his album Amnesia, he was always having great albums, but um, they kept getting better. It seems after he went solo from uh, his marriage, although there's some great songs there. But this one has 2 songs that open the album that are both just killer. And that is one of them is an up-tempo song called Turning of the Tide. Um, did
Hmm.
she run her fingers up and down your shabby, did he run his fingers up and down your shabby dress? Turning of the Tide is a really great one. But then one of my absolute favorite songs by Richard Thompson, Gypsy Love Songs. And I love where he talks about how he was seduced by, drugged, slipped a Mickey Finn, seduced and left hanging by a gypsy, and she left a note on the desk, and all it said was strange. Um, Thompson was a great songwriter. He still is. And so Richard Thompson's Amnesia, Turning of the Tide, and Gypsy Love Songs. And there's at least one more truly great song from there, but I'll get to that on the live album.
Okay, and I apologize. My phone was going off, and I kept saying I can't talk, I can't talk, and he called me 4 times. Did you even notice?
Yeah, I noticed you were doing something. I wasn't quite sure what it was.
So I apologize for that. Yeah, Richard Thompson, we're both huge fans. Amnesia, good album. Yeah, yeah, it didn't make my list, but I like you know how much I like Richard Thompson. So, all right, you ready for my number seven?
Ready for your number seven?
So far we haven't had anything in common, and I don't think you're going to have this one, but I got the debut album by Louisiana's Lucinda Williams.
Oh
I'm a
yeah,
big
yeah.
I'm a big Lucinda Williams fan, and I love her Southern drawl. You know, one thing about her that's slightly annoying is that she's increased her Louisiana drawl over the years. I like it, but it's really exaggerated now. But on this debut album, she's singing, in a country style, but not with that exaggerated Louisiana drawl. So I like this. I like the first 5 or 6 Lucinda Williams albums. They're all really good. And this was produced. I'm going to talk about these producers because I love these names. Gerf Morlix and Dusty Wakeman. Now, if that doesn't sound like a couple Americana names, I don't know what else is. And then she also co-produced the album, but this got critical. This was critically reviewed well. She was new on the scene. Like I say, this was her debut, and she came on in '88. And I like the first album. I think she would get better, but this is a really strong introduction. And I'm going to go with the songs Changed the Locks, which, kind of calls back to Hank Williams' Moving On Over, where he comes home and the locks have been changed on the front door. And he has to sleep in the literal doghouse with his dog. This one is more from a feminine point of view with a guy who's kind of obsessed with her. And she changes the locks, she changes her phone, she drives a new car. He sounds like a real stalker dude. And then the song that was covered by Mary Chapin Carpenter, Passionate Kisses. But yeah, I really like Lucinda Williams, so she's at number seven.
What's the name of the album? I don't think you mentioned it.
Oh, it's eponymous. I'm sorry. It's called Lucinda Williams.
Okay. Okay. I haven't heard that one. The earliest Lucinda Williams album that I really like a lot is Car Wheels on a Gravel Road.
Hmm.
All right. So, but yeah, she's great. She reminds me in some ways of a female version of Deverell. There's something about her that they both have strong accents. They both have a rough, tough feel about them, and it's very unusual for a country woman. And I don't mean this in any kind of misogynistic way, but to be so tough sounding. Um, I mean, female country artists tend to be a little bit sweeter. I mean, yeah, there are tough, women. Like I think Patti Smith immediately comes to mind, but Lucinda Williams is tough as nails.
Yeah.
Always. Um, okay. Next one is an album that I was familiar with this guy from his band. Um, and then in 1988, which was an important year for me, because you asked me if I remember anything. Um, our first Cairn Terrier, Muffin, she died. Okay. And for some reason, a number of albums that came out around the time just, they really struck me. And I really I just really remember them well. Um, not that they have anything to do with dogs dying, but they're just something that I associate with it. And one of them is the um, lead singer for Bauhaus, Peter Murphy, and his album Love Hysteria. And Cindy was in Texas at the time when I got this. And I'm going to mention that with another album because there were two albums that I played for her when she got back, and she loved both of them. Um, but this one, Love Hysteria, is Murphy had he still had his deep Peter Murphy goth voice, but he was very melodic and uh, and he was writing these songs that were just really they were really catchy. Um, he also and he was he did an Iggy Pop cover on the album as well, but on Love Hysteria, there's two songs that I can't live without. One of them is his first single from the album, Indigo Eyes.
Mm.
Okay. Um, and that became a standard of his, Indigo Eyes. And the the song he still does it. And I was real I you were with me when we saw Peter Murphy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was great. We he This was a little bit after this album, but it was just a fine you know a fine album, fine song. And I had Cindy and I were both really disappointed because we saw the David Bowie tribute tour, with artists who owed a lot to David Bowie, and one and he was going to be the headliner, but he got really sick, and
Mm.
so they canceled it. And they canceled the whole thing, and it was really sad because we really wanted to see him again, especially doing some David Bowie songs, which he did back in the Bauhaus days. Um, but Indigo Eyes and the other one is Time Has Got Nothing to Do with It, which is almost a hypnotic song when he sings Time has got nothing to do with it. And he's a croon, a literal croon. And so if you have never heard Peter Murphy, goth crooner, that's the way to think of him, a goth crooner. He used to be a goth screecher, like with Bela Lugosi's Dead. But he's really warmed up. I really warmed up to him with this album, Love Hysteria, Peter Murphy. Indigo Eyes, Time Has Got Nothing to Do with It.
I see
Ah,
Russ in the. Oh, he's just they're a trip.
it's
Well,
funny because just before we started, Wendell was up here with me and then he left. And Wendell, where have you gone? Oh, well, he spends a lot of time up on the chair behind me here.
yeah. Wow. They are probably going to rock my computer again. They're right down below me, but anyway, they're cute kid. They're less than 2 years old. So yeah, my number six. Are we on six already? Wow.
Yeah, number six.
Produced by Glenn Johns, who did a lot of albums, The Who and Rolling Stones, and this is John Hyatt, Slow Turning. I love this album. Um, yeah, it features Sonny Landreth and Bernie Ledden from the Eagles, and their playing is so good on here, so awesome. And yeah, I love virtually every song on here. And I'm a big John Hyatt fan. I'm going to go with the title track, Slow Turning, which has got great lyrics. When I was a boy, I thought it just came to you. And he talks about how it's a slow turning from the inside out. It's a song about maturing and funny lyrics about I'm yelling at the kids in the back because they're yelling like Charlie Watts. And she's laughing that crazy laugh because we haven't even left the parking lot. And he's always a great lyricist. I enjoy him. And then a song that some people don't like, but I like, it's called Paper Thin. And it's a song about, he's in recovery. And it's a song about that. Do I really have to be responsible for what happened between those tavern walls? You could have heard, um, you could have heard a pin drop. You could have heard time crawl. And it's just a great song. I love it with a great guitar riff. And so Slow Turning and Paper Thin from John Hyatt's Slow Turning.
Okay, another great album. Um, Number five for me was the first album that REM made for Warner Brothers, and that is Green. And it's funny because just a couple of years later, Kaylee was born, and as a toddler, Kaylee learned to read the word green. And she would go and look at my CDs in their CD rack. And she always found it very amusing that this CD was called Green when it has an orange cover, a totally orange cover. And she always thought that was super funny. And when I said, pick a CD for us to listen to, and she would pull out Green and she'd say, Green, Dad. Um, but REM's Green. Is it the best REM album? No. But they did not sell out. They actually continued with the kind of sounds that they were making before, maybe a little bit more polished production. But one of the songs is one of my all-time favorite songs by REM, though it's not. I don't think it was a single, and you don't find it on Greatest Hits. But it's "You Are the Everything," which has a mandolin playing on it, and the lyrics by Michael Stipe. Michael Stipe is great at. I mean, he does weird lyrics, but this song, it's about being a child, and I don't know if you can relate to this, Gene, but I certainly can, and that is at night being in the back seat of the car as your parents are driving, and you just see the sky going by outside, and it's that magical, mystical feeling that you got, and uh, it kind of gives me chills. And Stipe could do that. Oh, by the way, when this album first came out, uh, there was a cliche that was being used by critics saying, "Oh, now that you can understand what Michael Stipe is singing, you can't understand what Michael Stipe is singing." And that's not true. You could. Um, but you are the everything, and then a real rocker, which was an anti-war song, Orange Crush,
Yeah.
and so it was about Agent Orange and. So you have two very different songs, a beautiful mandolin-based song, and then this rocker Orange Crush from REM's Green.
Wow, nothing in common so far.
No,
This will be a first. I know it's going to be at least two in common, I can tell. Number five for me is my favorite rap group. And I do like rap music when it's really good. This is Public Enemy. It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, which was their second album. Again, a sophomore album that improved on the debut. And I love this. The Bomb Squad, man, their sonics are just so interesting, drawing from free jazz and musique concrete and funk. And it's just such a great bed to put up against Chuck D and Flavor Flav, who give you two completely different styles of rapping. And I love it. Produced by Rick Rubin, Chuck D, and Hank Shockley, who pretty much was the engineer on here. In fact, I was reading yesterday that Hank Shockley and one of the other members of the Bomb Squad actually did not tour with them uh, while they were working on this album. They felt it was so important that they get the album correct. And so that's interesting that they bowed down from touring. And then when the tour was over, they came back and finished the album. But yeah, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back is critically revered. I love the album. I'm going to go with the songs Don't Believe the Hype and Rebel Without a Pause. So, number five, Public Enemy.
Great album, and one of the ones that was in my top 20, and I had to cut it out because of other ones that were in there. But yes, my favorite Public Enemy album. Um, the next one is a band that actually, let me give you a little background here. In 1991, 3 years later, a movie was made about an an Irish band that was a kind of throw together band that they were looking to win an award, and they were an Irish R&B ensemble, and they were a large ensemble um, that kind of tried to recreate the show band type of thing, and it actually um, it was they were very much R&B, American R&B sounding, and not as much Irish. Well, um, 3 years prior, there was a band, and it's not U2. There was an actual Irish band that really fit the bill better. I mean, because they were an Irish R&B band, and they called themselves the Hot House Flowers. And uh, the lead singer Liam Maloney, he is a native Gaelic speaker. Um, and but his voice really powerful. But he's very Irish, but very influenced also by American R&B. And this first album that they did, many people consider it their best. I don't. I consider their next album better, but this was a great one. People. And it had the first two songs. One was their first single, "I'm Sorry," which is very much an R&B thing, and then "Don't Go," which they have similar types of sounds to them, but I wouldn't give up either one of them. If you like Irish music and you like R&B, check out Hot House Flowers. People, "I'm Sorry," and "Don't Go" are the songs that I chose.
Wow. Yeah, I knew you liked them. And so that's your number four, huh?
That is my number four. Yes.
Wow. Well, nice segue to my number four, which is also an Irish album. And that's our beloved Van Morrison,
Hmm.
The
Okay.
Chieftains. So I do love Irish Heartbeat. You liked this album more than I did when it came out, but man, has it grown on me over the years. I get it, and I do love Irish music. And the Chieftains are the premier Irish band, you know. And this was produced by Van Morrison and Paddy Maloney. Rest in peace, Paddy. Uh, they talked about working on an album together, agreed to do two Van Morrison songs, and then the rest of the album is traditional. And I love this. This is a fantastic album, 5 stars all the way. And yeah, I think my top five, I would all give 5 stars to, starting with the Public Enemy. So Van Morrison and the Chieftains, great. And this was actually hard to pick a song from because it's a pretty even album. Uh, I don't find there to be standout tracks per se. It kind of just goes along, and every song is really good. One is Scottish, by the way. Marie's Wedding is a Scottish song, but the rest of them are all Irish. And yeah, and I like the two Van Morrison songs, but I'm going to go with Raglan Road and My Leg in Love, which has those what I call unhinged vocals from Van that are so interesting. but many, many good songs on here. So number four, uh, this combination of Celtic soul with traditional Celtic music. It looks good on paper and it sounds good on CD. So Irish Heartbeat at number four.
Excellent. Number three, this is one I know that you have in here somewhere, and that is Patti Smith's Dream of Life. Um, it is it's the other album that got Cindy to like Patti Smith so much. She came home from vacation and I played her that, and she said, "This is Patti Smith. It's beautiful." Even the rockers were beautiful, and she really, really liked it, and she still does to this day. Um, and it might be my favorite Patti Smith album. Although objectively I would put Horses before it. Subjectively, I just love this album. And uh, the this was after her husband Fred Smith. Um, you know, he after he passed away, and so there's a lot of pain that she turned into beauty on the album. But she starts with a rebel song, "People Have the Power," which, that's a really, it's an anthem. But then the other one that I love so much is "Paths That Cross." Paths
Mm.
that cross will cross again. And so Patti Smith, "Dream of Life," "People Have the Power," and "Paths That Cross."
Wow. We still haven't had anything in common. This is
Mm-mm.
really an unusual year for us. Um, yeah, I like Dream of Life, produced by Fred Smith. Uh, I like the song Up There, Down There. That's a good song. Yeah, but I like your two picks the best. My number three is a band that I did not listen to in 1989, didn't discover them for at least a decade, and that's Talk Talk. So I love this album, Spirit of Eden. They had a run of about three really good albums and produced by Tim Freesey Green, who co-wrote all the songs with Mark Hollis. And it's just a nice moody album. I guess they took months to record it, did it all in the dark with candlelight, and you get that feel. It's just an ethereal album that kind of floats, and I love it. I think Talk Talk has aged very well. Some people have remarked that Spirit of Eden doesn't really scream 1989. It's kind of out of time
Mhm.
in the way that an album like Astral Weeks by Van Morrison is. And I would agree with that. It doesn't really speak to its time period. And the songs I'm going with are The Rainbow and the single I Believe in You. And but there's only six songs on the album, and they're all pretty much equally good. So Talk Talk, Spirit of Eden at number three.
Beautiful album. My number two is the other album by Richard Thompson. And this one, I actually bought this at a Richard Thompson concert when we saw him at the Rhythm Room. And it's an authorized bootleg, if you will. I mean, he was at the time releasing albums he was that were being sold at his shows, and they were legit, but they weren't being sold in the stores. And this one I found fascinating because of the track selection. And it's a 1988 live album called More Guitar. And it's songs from se- several concerts on his 1988 tour. And what do they have in common? They all really emphasize his electric guitar playing. And so, like, wow, that's going to be great. And so it's one of my favorite live albums, even if it's not live album from beginning to end. It's live songs from different concerts, and other people have done that. Neil Young, uh, and trying to think of somebody else in particular, Jackson Brown, who have done, made albums that are live songs from different shows. But this one is great. Richard, it's a full 80 minutes of Richard Thompson burning on his guitar and doing great songs, more guitar. And and I would have chosen Shoot Out the Lights, but I already chose that for 1982, and I'm trying to choose different songs. But this version of Shoot Out the Lights has some burning guitar, of course. But Can't Win, which is from Amnesia, and it's the other great song from Amnesia. But this one, he stretches out for 10 minutes on the song, and he made an album of an anthology that came out a few years later, and it was an anthology of his stuff from just different periods of his career, and it opened with the song "Can't Win," and it was this recording of it. So this is better than the version from Amnesia. It's just killer song. And then the other one is a song that is sort of a I wouldn't necessarily call it a deep track, but it's not a song that people tend to remember him by. It was from his first solo album, Henry the Human Fly. And it is The Angels Took My Racehorse Away, which has Richard's wry humor on it. It's like he's mourning the fact that his horse has died, his racehorse has died. And and it's a really up tempo song. It's not a dirge, it's a fun song. The Angels took my racehorse away, and he does a great live version of that. So Richard Thompson, more guitar. It's available on Spotify, and if you like Richard Thompson, you got to give it a listen.
Wow. Wow. Number two. That's a pleasant surprise. I love that. My number two is the Water Boys from Scotland and from Ireland and from England. They're from all over the place. Multiple producers on here, and it flows. It's great. This is the album where they changed their sound to go with the more traditional, rustic, Celtic kind of feel. And I love it. I love the old Water Boys. I love the new Water Boys. I like everything they've done. Love love everything about it. Hard to pick songs from here because there's so many strong ones. There's ones like Bang on an Ear, which is a great song. There's Sweet Thing, the cover of Van Morrison. But I'm going with the title track, Fisherman's Blues, and then a song that I just really like called Strange Boat. Oh, World Party is on here too, which is a song that Carl Wallinger took the name of his band from that song. So there's at least five really killer tracks that I could have picked on here, but Fisherman's Blues and Strange Boat just has a wonderful mood that I like. I also used it when I went to Europe in '89. I recorded my trip. It was video recorders were not very well known then, but my sister had one. I borrowed it and I put music to that video and I put Strange Boat on there when I was in Amsterdam. And that song goes really well with that home movie that I made. And I've always loved the song Strange Boat. So I'm going to go with that just for personal bias. But yeah, the Water Boys at number two.
Okay, well, my number one, where the hell was it? Well, it's right at number one, Irish Heartbeat by Van Morrison and the Chieftains. It is in a handful of, I mean, there's so many Van Morrison albums I love. This is one of the ones that really, really stands out as a great one. And I just love what Van Morrison did with the Chieftains. I've been a Van Morrison fan since high school, a Chieftains fan since many years previous to this, and that it's a marriage made in heaven. Okay. Um, and every song is brilliant on it. And what's interesting is that the that Van's singing on it is not traditional Irish singing, but uh, it's still very Irish. And so the two songs that I would choose would be the opening song, "Star of the County Down," which is a real it's a an up tempo, almost jig type song that for a while up into the early '90s, Van was doing it live. But then my favorite song from the album is a song that Cindy has famously referred to as the best Van Morrison song that Van never wrote. Okay. And that is Raglan Road. Now, it sounds so much like a Van Morrison song lyrically and musically. It is not a traditional Irish song. It is a song written by an Irish poet from earlier in the 20th century, and I can't think of his name right now, but he wrote the poem, and then um, Patty put it to a traditional Irish tune, and it has become, with that traditional Irish tune, a song that other singers, Irish singers, do, but nobody can touch it like Van Morrison does. Raglan Road, and and one of the things it reminds me of is, did you ever see the movie Wings of Desire?
Yes.
Well, remember how it's about an angel who falls in love with a woman and he gives up his wings, you know. And there's a line in here: when the angel woos the clay, he lose his wings at the dawn of the day. And that's the final line from the song. But so Star of the County Down and Raglan Road are my two favorite songs from the album, Irish Heartbeat.
Well, that's going to remain our only, that's amazing. Our top 10, we only have one in common. That has never happened because
You
my
didn't even,
number one album is not, can you guess what my number one album is?
I would have guessed Patti Smith, but you know,
No, it is an album recorded at the same studio as Public Enemy. In fact, the producer was the engineer on the Public Enemy album. In fact, this band actually did a song with Chuck D. So Nick Sensano, who was the engineer on Public Enemy, he is the producer on here, and this was recorded at Green Street in New York. And this is Sonic Youth,
hmm,
Daydream Nation.
that was okay. I'll talk about that one when we get to my honorable mentions. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. My favorite Sonic Youth album. Though I do like a lot of their 21st century albums. There's a couple others that I really like a lot. But this one is just, what can you say about this album? It's kind of the pinnacle of indie rock. They went with a more tuneful version of, and tuneful's kind of a pun because, you know, let's say more melodic form of noise rock. But of course, they do all those alternate tunings. So I don't want to call it tuneful. We'll call it melodic. It's a double album. I think it's great. I just love everything about this album. I'm going to go with the opening track, Teenage Riot, and then a song called Total Trash. But there's so many good songs on here because it is my number one. And I know that you know that I like Sonic Youth, but you probably had no idea I liked him this much. In fact, I read a
No,
biography on them, and it really made me appreciate them even more. But I'm a big Sonic Youth fan, Daydream Nation. First heard of this album when the guy at the Devil House told me about it. I was at a concert and he was saying, "Man, you need to listen to Daydream Nation." And I did, and I've been in love with it ever since. So that's my number one.
that was the I kept bouncing back and forth between that and one of my other honorable mentions. And so it didn't make my honorable mention, but it would have definitely been my number 16, or it could have been my number 15. I could have gone either way. And I went with something a little bit safer just because I had to ask myself, which album do I prefer to listen to? Daydream Nation or this one? And I chose this one, which is probably my favorite dream pop album, Starfish by the Church, an
Ah,
Australian band who did this. This was like the peak of dream pop. If you want to hear what dream pop is, this is really it, Starfish. And you know, and I love both of the albums, but I tend to listen to the church more often than I listen to Sonic Youth. Except actually, amusingly, the Sonic Youth I listen to the most is the stuff that they did on for the soundtrack of the Bob Dylan biopic I'm Not There. Um, and Thurston Moore, of course, is a huge Bob Dylan fan. But so they didn't make my honorable mention, but Starfish did, and the song "Under the Milky Way" is a
Yeah.
song that is just it's just one of those amazing songs. The other four honorable mentions: another Irish band, the Pogues, "If I Should Fall from Grace with God," and "Lullaby of London" is a song that I would choose from that. Then the Waterboys, "Fisherman's Blues." And I would choose the title track, the opening track, Fisherman's Blues. If I chose a second one, and it would not be Sweet Thing because I chose Sweet Thing for their earlier um, version of it, but it would be We Will Not Be Lovers. But another
Ah,
song I love on the album is uh, The Stolen Child, which is based on a William Butler Yeats poem.
hmm.
So yeah, fantastic album. It's just because the other things were so good that it didn't make it into there. And then Robert Plant's Now and Zen. Um, I have only warmed up to Robert Plant more and more as the years go by. Uh, I never would have thought that if you asked me, who's your favorite rock band, I would say Led Zeppelin, but they are. I mean, if you don't count the Beatles, who are, you know, uh, an unclassifiable pop band, but beyond the Rolling Stones, beyond anything, uh, Led Zeppelin is my favorite rock band. And Robert Plant, and you and I have talked about this, his his earlier solo albums were a little bit tentative. They all had good songs, but they weren't necessarily great. But by this time, he was coming into his own. And there's a number of really fine songs on it, but I love the ballad Ship of Fools.
Yeah.
Um, and, I also really like Long Cool One, which, samples a bunch of Led Zeppelin songs. But Ship of Fools would be the one song that I would choose from this. And then the other one is a super group that deserved to be in here somewhere, especially since I love every single one of them, even though two of them, three of them, two of them are dead. No, two of them dead? I think just two of them. The Traveling Wilburys. Um, and you had Roy Orbison and Tom Petty, who have passed, Jeff Lynne, who has not passed from ELO, and George, oh no, yeah, three of them are dead. George Harrison, so three of them are dead, and then Bob Dylan, who will never die. He's sort of like Keith Richards, Bob Bob Dylan and Iggy Pop and Keith Richards. They're all gonna live forever. Um,
And
but
Yoko Ono.
Yoko Ono, yes, yes, and but it's amazing. And who was it who said about Keith Richards? Oh, it was my doppelganger. A British comedian who looks very much like me. He has the beard, he has the long hair, wears the glasses. Billy Connolly. And Billy Connolly said, the interesting thing about Keith Richards is every time you smoke a cigarette, God's taking 1 hour off your life and giving it to Keith Richards.
Yeah. That seems true. Wow, interesting. Interesting honorable mentions. Yeah, this has been a fun year. We are
Oh, end of the line.
diverging.
The song from Wilburys would be End of the Line.
End of the line. Yeah, perfect song. I was surprised you didn't take tweet. Oh, yeah, but it's more Tweeter and the Monkey Man's more of a Dylan song. So End of the Line is the best band song on there, I
They
think.
all
Yeah.
they all sing on it. Yeah, that's what's cool.
Cool. Well, wow. So in my honorable mentions, I only have one album that you've mentioned. So wow, interesting. We're only going to have two albums that are in common. And guess what I don't have in my honorable mentions? I don't have Patti Smith in here.
You really don't?
Yeah, I love that album, but
Yeah, I
it's
know what
like,
it's like. 88 was
yeah,
that kind of.
It's I like it, but it's like top 20, top 25 for me. Yeah, it's I think it's an uneven album, but what I love on there, I like the Jackson song is great. Yeah, there's so many good songs on there. The one that you mentioned is Surfer Rosa by Pixies. So I do like that album, and I had picked Where Is My Mind, so I'll pick a different song for the playlist. I'm not sure which one yet. Well, let me look real quick. I probably would go with and for those watching, we do honorable mentions. Well, I probably would pick. I like Bone Machine, but let's go with Gigantic, so we get a Kim Deal song on here. Yeah.
Gigantic,
So
great song.
yeah. Love that. And speaking of Keith Richards, I do like one of his solo albums a lot, Talk is Cheap. Not a perfect album, but I like it quite a bit. Produced by Keith and Steve Jordan, who's now the drummer of the Rolling Stones. And I just love the sound of this album. I call Keith Richards, my name for him is the Riff Monster. That's my personal nickname for him. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody call him that, but my favorite song on here is a deep track. It's called Struggle. Struggle is a great song. My next honorable mention is Katie Lang. Katie Lang, her second album, it's called her debut because her first album was billed as Katie Lang in the Reclines. But this is Shadowland, and it's a really special album because it was produced by Owen Bradley, who is was a famous Nashville producer who, in fact, produced Patsy Cline among his other numerous production credits. And yeah, I like this album a lot. It's just smooth. It sounds really good. It has a number of guest artists on it, and Katie Lang's one of the premier singers. And I'm going to go with a song called "I'm Down to My Last Cigarette." These are all covers on here, by the way. Black Coffee is really good. Bunch of really just great country western songs, and she's not pure country, so that's what kind of makes it interesting. She's kind of half country and half classic pop singers from eras gone by. She's just really special. I like Katie Lang. My next one is U2's Rattle and Hum. Yeah, it's a hodgepodge album. The video's probably better than the album, but there's so many great new songs on here. I like all these singles that were added on here, produced by Jimmy Iovine. Yeah, I like it. Rattle and Hum. I'm going to go with the song Desire. Great, great U2 song. Uh, yeah, what was it? Charles Manson stole this song from the Beatles. We're stealing it back. Yeah, it's not a perfect album, but I love Rattle and Hum. And then my last honorable mention is a band I've had on here before, Bad Brains. Their other SST album called Live. That's it, Bad Brains Live. And it really captures this band in concert, one of the great live bands you'll ever hear. And I'm going to go with song Sacred Love. And Sacred Love was a song that when they did it when they did it on their album, the studio version, HR sang it from prison or jail. I'm not sure which. He sang it over the telephone. And I kind of like this live version where it's unadulterated. So Pixies, Keith Richards, Katie Lang, U2, and Bad Brains. That's a weird list, but I love it. I'm sticking to it. And
Cool.
by the way, I have a note here. I have a note here that I just always find these things interesting. Fisherman's Blues, my number two album, was recorded on October 17th. And Daydream My Nation, my number one album, was recorded or released on October 18th. So those two albums, my number one and number two album, came out on consecutive days. Just kind of an interesting tidbit. So that's it.
Cool. Katie Lang, that album that you mentioned, Shadowland, is
Uh-huh.
definitely sounds like Patsy Cline.
Hmm. So what before we go into who we've seen in concert, since we only had two in common, what's your take on our choices this year?
I think that almost all of your choices, not all of them, but almost all of them, would have been on my list had we made like a top 30 or even a top 20. Okay. Like you kept mentioning albums that would have been that were the next five from when I came up with 20 albums and I had to pull them. So that's my take on it, that it was a year of some great albums.
Yeah, and it means our playlist will be more diverse than usual.
Hmm.
So for those of you who haven't checked out our playlists, I think they're really entertaining. I've been listening to them myself, so really enjoy it. All right, you want to? We usually close with going through our 15 and talking about who we've seen in concert.
Yeah, not too many for me. I've seen Richard Thompson three times with you at the Rhythm Room and twice at, no, actually four times. The Rhythm Room also with you at the outdoor
Compadre
show.
Stadium, Compadre
Yes,
Stadium.
and twice at the uh, the MIM, the Musical Instrument Museum.
Oh
Uh,
man.
and with the musical and at the MIM front row. And it's
Oh,
funny because my friend Glenn Wilson, um, I Glade Wilson, I mean Glade Wilson, uh, he's a huge guitar fan, and I got him into Richard Thompson, and he bought tickets for the front row, but he was off to the side. And I said, Glade, I've seen him before. You take the front and center seat, and he did, and he
oh.
loved it. He was able to see how Thompson was playing. Um, and so that was great. Uh, seen Peter Murphy with you.
Hmm.
Seen REM several times. Um, and seen Van Morrison several times. And I think that's it. Yes.
All right. I've seen the Waterboys once on their Room to Rome tour. That was a great show. I've seen Van Morrison twice in 99 and maybe 2000, late 2000s, the late OOs on his country western tour when he was doing country western music. Um, I have seen Public Enemy, sort of. They opened for U2 on their Achtung Baby tour. I say sort of because they were protesting the fact that Arizona had decided they didn't want to have the Martin Luther King holiday. And so Public Enemy was not going to perform in protest, but they wanted to do the song by the time I got to Arizona. And so they came out and they did about three songs and they walked off stage. And so it was a 10 to 15-minute set, but I have seen Public Enemy. They were great. I've seen John Hyatt twice. I've seen the Smithereens twice, believe it or not, at the Arizona Veterans Coliseum. I think both shows were, well, one show was State Fair. Um, I saw Pixies one time, believe it or not. They opened for U2 in, I want to say 1992, last time that I saw U2. So yeah, Pixies were the opening act at the Activity Center. I've never seen Keith Richards, but I've seen the Rolling Stones once. So I guess I've seen Keith Richards. I saw Katie Lang one time at, I think, Symphony Hall, I think. And she was good. She told everybody, man, you talk about baiting us. She said, I was in the closet picking out something to wear for tonight. And she had us all on the clothesline with that line, but she's tall. Man, she's about 6'2". So she was great. And then I've seen U2 numerous times, and that's it.
Um, oh, and I saw the Traveling Wilburys in my dreams.
In your in
In my
what?
dream. In my dreams.
Yeah, I've seen how many of those? I've seen 3/5 of them, I guess. So never saw George Harrison or Jeff Lynne, but saw the other three. And you've seen Dylan, and yeah. So well, that's it. It was an interesting year. It was I think deeper than 87, maybe not as strong at the top. 87 had a top 5 or 6. It was awesome. But I think the year was deeper. Um, yeah. And I think proof that we didn't converge is proof that it was a deep year. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this.
I did. I did. Looking forward to 1989 next week.
I've been working on it. And yeah, that's it. So, got a salutation?
Uh, Whoop-de-doo.
As we
That, that,
say here in Bonita, Mexico, buen dia. Give us your
Phoenix,
comments. We
in
appreciate
Phoenix, we say whoop-de-doo.
them.